Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Zwift Community Live broadcast of Dig Deep Coaching Grand Tour Stage number 13, found along with the Tour de France out on Zwift for all the critical moves. In workout mode, we're simulating the critical moves of the Tour de France and talking about what's been going on for the stages yesterday, the stage today, and the stage tomorrow. I've got along with me Stephen Gallagher from Dig Deep Coaching as we do get out a little bit too fast on my avatar into the workout. I'm going to slow this guy right on down, not following the rules at all for the workout here. Steven, how's it going? Good to see you today. Kind of a flatter stage today. I think the riders are going to be very happy about that, I would assume. Yesterday was super iconic, but maybe not looking at the red on the screen.
No. There's some people who will be afraid. Yeah, I mean, again, like we talked about yesterday, we've just had, there was three big stages in the Alps. So there's been a lot of threshold work. There's been a lot of sort of strength work in the regarding the cadence. So today we're back on the transition stages before going towards the Pyrenees. So again, it's a very different demand of what we have been doing. Like a lot of the riders in the actual Tour de France, I think, we wanted it to be a bit shorter today. Anybody who's been here for the last, 13 stages is going to be pretty tired. We kept it short today. The stage is only about 45 minutes long, but that doesn't mean it's not intense. Just looking at the red on the left-hand side of the screen there, you'll see that it is pretty intense. But again, very different demands. We're looking at a lot of short, sharp efforts. We're doing a lot of sort of high velocity, low torque efforts as well. So mimicking, moves in the bunch, accelerations in the group, holding positions, and also that last sprint and that last sort of, ramp up in the last 3 sort of kilometers. So bit steady at the start. We're doing our normal warm up, and then we're going into 10 minutes at zone 2, then another 8 minutes, 2 minutes, sort of going up to zone 3, and then just going to our bottom of our threshold for a bit. And then, and then we're, right into what we would say, the critical part of the stage and trying to hold position, making them short, sharp efforts, changing of cadence, really going up to 115, 110 RPM, high velocity stuff. Very different to what we've been doing. And then it's the big bullet at the end for the sprint.
What's interesting to me is to see the difference, as you were just saying, between the sprint stages here, where you have a lot of this tempo riding, followed up by these extremely high efforts into that red and those red zones into the 5 and the 6 there. Whereas the mountain stages, we saw a ton of the yellow on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
There, so for those of you that aren't familiar or will want an explanation of the zones that are represented in the workout that is on the left-hand side of the screen here, this is the workout for the day in workout mode. All the riders are riding the same exact workout. It looks like Clive Kinn was able to get his workout mode going there. There was, for some reason, I think he was unable to get a little screen in front of him. Now I do see it there. So I do see he sees all of the workout mode in front of him now. Good to see. But
Cool.
You can see what is happening for all the riders for the workout on the left-hand side here of the screen. And a lot of green for that tempo. And then just super hard efforts, whereas in the mountains we saw tons of yellow, zone 4. A lot of threshold work, so it looks like not so much threshold work on the flatter stages. What seems to be the norm then, Stephen, when it comes to riding Tour de France.
Yeah, I mean, we're only trying to take the critical parts and trying to give a snapshot of what the riders, would have been, the demands would have been. On today's stage. Today we've got a different persona that we're being the sprinter. So we're looking at obviously making sure that we've got that big punch at the end. What a lot of the last 3 days has entailed is obviously lots of time at prolonged efforts going for 5, 10, 20 minutes. We had yesterday basically a 40-minute around our threshold effort. And, to be able to do that, unlike the riders doing the tour, to be able to pace that for long periods of time, they can't be going into the red. They can't be going into their, over 120% of their FTP continuously, even for short periods of time, because the efforts are so prolonged after it. they're going to burn their matches a lot, and then that's the day over. But something like today, I would suspect that having we're still waiting on some data coming in from the riders of today's stage, but I suspect like a lot of time they would have spent even in zone 1 today. So that would be at the start. Now they did ramp up. Anybody who's seen the stage, they probably didn't go as easy as what a lot of teams maybe wanted it to be.
I saw the gap wasn't very big,
yeah,
and I think maybe an explanation of that, like why perhaps that would be. Stephen, as some might not understand, and maybe that's a dynamic we talk about today, where I don't think we've talked about it on stream yet. Why the break is given so much room on certain days, and why this game is played of cat and mouse on sprint days.
Yeah. The game was quite different today, as you said. I mean, for anybody who is a regular viewer of professional cycling, or certainly has been in the been in this situation themselves, they'll understand that whenever, certainly on a transition stage, and a bit like what I said yesterday, we were saying about I thought the break would stay away, but then in hindsight, what the teams were looking at is there were so many of the main sprinters. The best sprinters, some people would say, have left the race, unfortunately, due to injury or due to not making the time cut. So that is probably about 4 major teams that would normally be riding at the front to help bring a break back, that aren't there anymore, or don't have the willingness to actually bring the break back, because basically they've little to go for. So them guys that are normally there bringing the break back are now going in the lead for to get the break. So with that in mind, you can't obviously bring out that gap to 5 minutes or 7 minutes, which is kind of what I was expecting today. I thought there was going to be a 7-minute gap to the lead 4, 5, 6 riders, whatever it was going to be. They were going to be way down the general classification. Nobody else cared, bar the sprinters. And yeah, that was probably going to shout out for a sprint between a small group. Well, what we did see is that the Lafrancis Dejaux guys, they were really setting it up for Honor Demar, and they obviously didn't want that gap to go out so far, because if it was to go really, really far out, it means that you got to ride pretty hard to bring it back. But if you're 2 or 3 teams working and you've got a lot of men, that can come back relatively easy when you think of the energy expenditure across 3 or 4 teams. But whenever there's only ever one or 2 teams that want to ride, they can afford to bring out put that gap out. So they needed to keep them on a real short leash. And what that did mean today is that the pace actually was moderately harder than probably what a lot of riders wanted to be. How today probably would have went if everybody was in the bunches, that they would have went a lot easier for that first sort of 2 hours of the stage. 3 hours would have went a lot easier. Then the pace would have really ramped up later on and went a lot harder. Where today, it wasn't never really that easy. But of course, if you were sitting in the bunch and there wasn't that much wind, it wasn't that hilly, it wasn't excruciatingly painful either for a lot of it. But it just meant that weren't able to relax.
You're saying that because the big hitter sprinters are gone, their teams aren't as motivated, which makes the tour harder.
For a lot of guys, yeah.
Like for a lot of guys, it makes the tour harder because they can't let that gap go as far out, because they're not going to have as many teams to work with them, and the breakaways have a higher chance of staying away now, which might make the racing more interesting on these flatter stages when it comes to the breaks at least being able to stay away. We might see more attacks. I was wondering if I was looking at that gap early on and was thinking there might be a few people who try and just go across with how small this gap is, and then it really starts growing. Then you turn into a full-on one day race kind of situation.
Yeah, and whenever I sort of switched the stage on with about maybe 50, 60 k's to go, and I was like, whoa, they're only sitting at a minute, and I think at that time I thought, well, anybody who might have went and tried to attempt to get across would have known that peloton didn't want anybody to get a big gap. So that kind of puts away people of, yes, the springboard to the to that group is only a minute, but they understand that the likelihood of them letting them go is going to be greatly reduced, because there's basically a team that are very keen on keeping the gap really short. So their willingness to ride quite difficult and ride quite hard was there, and that it was going to be difficult to get away. I mean, the best scenario for somebody that didn't want to have a sprint was to do like Gilbert done, and he done a perfect move with 700-800 meters to go. It was slightly uphill. It was a bit of a kick. He went really early and caught a lot of guys in the hop, and was just caught with maybe 300 meters to go. But at that point, that was probably the only tactic that you could have done, unless you were super strong. So my man that I went for with Thomas de Gendt yesterday, seen it, I was like, yep, he's in the break. But unfortunately, he was the first one dropped from the break, or he sat up maybe with 20 kilometers to go. So but yeah, it just wasn't a day for the breakaway. Tomorrow, yeah, we'll talk about tomorrow later. But
there's a few KOMs out there, right? Is de Gendt?
Yeah,
I'm incorrect there. Is de Gendt?
He's not up there now.
Not up there.
No.
Okay, gotcha.
No,
So,
which is unusual for him, because he normally goes for everything.
that's what I was thinking. That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
That's why I was wondering what was maybe going there. So,
yeah, he's
looking through here. Yeah. We do have a little bit of comments. If you guys do want to interact, we like to see Chris always here. Evening Nathan as well, as he called today's stage as well. I must have missed that. I'm gonna have to look back through, because we definitely want to give you a shout out there in the past comments.
Oh no, that's right. Yeah, no. Yesterday he
called the Sedan.
He said he called Sedan. Yeah.
All right. Well, if you guys want to make your predictions for tomorrow, we do those at the end during the cool down, and we'll definitely give you guys a shout out if you do grab that correctly. But also, that is the place for all the interactions on what is going on with the workout here. Questions you might have about workout mode, about Zwift, what this game's all about. Any questions you might have for myself or Steven as far as like coaching or the Tour de France goes, or just want to start up a conversation about something, a topic in the tour, go ahead, bring it in, and we will definitely do so. The way that you do that is either comment on the Mixer chat over at mixer.com/SwiftCommunityLive, tweet at us at ZCommunityLive, or make a comment like Chris did there in the Facebook chat. We are not really paying too much attention to the Twitch server, but we are live over there, and you can interact with other people who are chatting over there as well. So, all right, so flatter stage, the riders are still getting their warm-up here. 10 minutes at 2:10. We would like to talk about each section of the workout and how it replicates something in the stage today. So why don't we go ahead and talk about that 10 minutes that's coming up at 2:10 before we get into another topic.
Yeah, so this first section, you could really say that 10-minute, 8-minute, and 2-minute. Certainly, the 10-minute is basically the easy start to the stage. So it's replicating just the gradual sort of ride into the stage. I heard a lot of chatter after the stage and interviews. Certainly from Geraint Thomas and whatnot, saying everybody was really pleased to have that sort of steady start or easier stage today to settle in. And I know a lot of the guys and girls that are with us here this evening also have done the last few days big mountain stages, so I know they're going to be pretty happy that we've got 10 minutes in sort of zone 2 just to get your body moving into it. And then just as we progress on from that, we're mimicking over that next 10 minutes, that 8-minute block and 2-minute block is just starting to catch the break. So that's what we're going to do in that green section after the zone 2.
So we're skipping just about everything right up to maybe after the Cat 4 essentially today.
Yeah, just probably that this 10-minute block. So this 10 minutes is probably in around that Cat 4 area, going towards the end of it before Saint-Nazaire, Royan. Did I get that right?
Don't ask me. I'm not the one to ask on those ones.
The wrong person to ask. Yeah, destroying the language. So it was probably around that point, if it was going to be a day for the long break, like we were kind of expecting, that the pace was starting to ramp up. So at that point, then we're going to start ramping up the pace. Again, we're looking at bringing our cadence quite high. We're going up to 90 RPM, and then we're going to, even 105 RPM for 2 minutes. So again, we're looking at trying to stress different areas of what we've been doing these last sort of 3 days as well. It's great for anybody from a workout perspective who has been with us and is trying to get an overall fitness benefit and trying to see how the body reacts. Again, it's demanding in the sense that your torque changes are quite a bit. So, that last 2 minutes on that green section there, what you have on 270 watts. So we're really starting to bring the cadence up. Obviously trying to mimic flat stage, trying to keep a high cadence, and we're just going, sort of the just about our threshold as well, sort of bottom end of our, top end of tempo going towards our threshold.
So the also the high cadence, I would think. I mean, obviously stressing the system. Also, though, I've always found that high tempo like this that I'm seeing, not for a huge amount of times, but for this 10 minutes or so that we are going to see at a higher cadence is going to really help the blood get moving without too much stress on the system. Not without too much muscular, destroying the muscles like we have the last couple of days. And people probably come off this workout feeling better than they did going in if they did do the rest of the stages. I mean, and speaking of, we've got Aaron Locks is still in here, I believe. Yeah, there he is from One Love. We've got Holly in here. I mean, I feel like I'm commentating a race that's 21 stages long for some of these guys because I have been showing up. Dana, Cycling It, Aaron Locks, Holly, all. Bayless is in here as well. He's been super consistent. I mean, quite the effort from these guys. And I think they'll feel it during the sprints. Definitely, it'll raise the heart rates up, but it's gonna, I think, make them feeling fresh maybe coming off of this workout. Yeah. At least that's usually how I feel after these kinds of workouts, after lots of high stress days.
Yeah, I mean, this sort of workout, I think, is going to be is quite refreshing for a lot of people. Actually, you're not going to feel it in these 15-second efforts at 150, 200% of your FTP, obviously. But I think post ride, certainly to try and get the fast twitch muscle fibers activated because they haven't done a lot of work recently. We're going to be obviously stressing them quite a bit. And, the fact that it's also quite a short stage isn't going to give us a whole lot of muscular fatigue, both from either, that torque effort that we've been doing the last couple of days or just the duration of the effort, the duration of the whole ride, should I say. So I think from that perspective, it's going to be, like I say, quite refreshing that they're going to be hitting it. But what I will say is, on these 15 seconds, and certainly as we go into the sprint, which we'll talk about later on, as we sort of lead into the sprint, you really concentrate and get the focus on actually, how you're going to get that power distribution through the pedals. A lot of times people, come to us and we look at their sprinting technique or, and watch them in a race or whatever. And, how they distribute the power through the bike is can be wrong at times. So, yes, they have a big force, but how they're actually getting their body over the bike, how they're getting out of the saddle, where their hand position is, the gear that they're starting in is really important. So we've only got 15 seconds.
Oh.
It's important for you to get the most out of this sort of workout. The fact that they're quite short efforts, really trying to get your body position right. Again, almost have a bit of a mental countdown in your head, in the sense of how you're about to approach it, and really engage in your hips, really engage in your lower back, and on your forearms, trying to get that pull on the bars. So I mean, it's pretty critical to try and get the most out of it. So something to focus on today as well. We bit of change in the sprinting technique. Again, very different. I say most people we haven't really gone over 120% in 3 days, maybe. So, this is going to be quite different to what we have done.
Yeah, it's been definitely a lot of that steady threshold efforts for a long period of time. It's very different. We are getting a question coming through from Andy Harrison, actually, and this is about the warm-ups here. And, notice you have these short bursts as warm-ups. Can you talk about warm-up for racing and training? Are they different? It sounds like it's also what he's getting at, maybe a little bit there. So, that's an interesting question, because a lot of my warm-ups were always fairly not always different. Like if I had a really high intensity day, I would do a similar warm-up to like a super high intensity day where like I was thinking about this workout most of the day or the day before and like scared of it kind of a workouts, those workouts that you're going and you're like, I know how much I have to suffer. And those I would replicate race days. And then other times off of feeling more, I would then just do my, here 15 minutes, pedal around, maybe zone 2, you know what I mean? So but this is not a prescription. This is just Nathan's silliness is what this is. So what's Stephen, what are you thinking there?
Warm-ups are probably something that first thing I would say is everybody's quite different in how they react to different warm-ups. I know, again, come with age, some people now, they feel like a diesel. Whenever we speak to them after the race, they say, oh, here, it took me like an hour to get going. And then you're like, well, we got to correct that because, we don't want you to spend an hour feeling like crap, because if we adjust your warm-up to have the protocol a bit better, then, obviously you mightn't be completely firing on cylinders, but at least you're good enough in that first hour that you think you can react to things, where some people are like, felt so bad in that first hour. After that, the light came on and I was absolutely flying. So, there's that change, and there's also the event that you're going for. Obviously, a time trial or a pursuit type event or a criterium. The warm up is so critical because 100% you need to be on the game. For that sort of intensity, I see that I prefer to do something a lot sharper and shorter than having these big, long, prolonged warm ups. Purely from an organizational point of view, your nutrition and your hydration. I see guys sitting on a turbo trainer for 40 or 50 minutes before a time trial. They've sweated a lot. You've had to eat earlier. You have to a bit more stress trying to get there earlier. For that sort of intensity, I would like 20 minutes, 25 minutes. Doing a bit of a ramp up and then doing some high cadence activations. If I'm going for let's say a pursuit or a very short, maybe even like hill climb type effort, I would even do something like a 3-minute block, maybe in around sort of sweet spot during that maybe 20-25 minutes. So not only would I do a high activation, but I would try and get my heart rate up for a sustained period of time. So these high cadence efforts are more about, getting the blood flow going quite quick, raising your aerobic system. But at the end of that 30 seconds, you're only getting your heart rate up at that stage, probably the 4 or 5 seconds after the interval finishes, and then it comes down quite quick. So what I would kind of do in them sort of situations is, for a more shorter, intense, let's say a 3-minute hill climb or a 5-minute hill climb, is actually try and get a 3-minute block or 4-minute block in around sweet spot. So your heart rate is quite high for, or moderate level for a period of time. Bring it back down again, right down to recovery, then bring up the cadence activations, and then bring it back down 10 minutes before the start. I would normally do that in, certainly before very high intensive efforts that are coming up quite quick. So stage races, or should I say normal road races, it's a bit different. I was always I probably didn't do enough warm up basically before a lot of races, especially if it was cold and wet and, you wanted to sit in your team lorry or team camper van. You're like, I don't want to go outside. You've got 200 Ks to go. But then your manager tells you that you've got to be in the early break, and basically you've got to do the first 10 Ks, like the last 10 kilometers. So that's times where I really, really regretted it. So, yeah. So, I mean, that from that perspective, bringing turbo trainers to the start of races and stuff is now getting a little bit mainstream. You see a lot more of it, where whenever I raced, and certainly when I was younger, if you had a turbo trainer at the start of a road race, people looked at you a bit weird, so, but now it's obviously there's a lot more science behind it and how beneficial it can be. So
I think some of my best warm-ups actually were when I brought a turbo trainer alongside and just got the work done early on. We in mountain biking it's a similar where it was you got to go. I mean, warm up is so crucial in mountain biking. If you're not ready to absolutely push out 700 to 1,000 watts off the line, there's nothing happening in that race. It's over, right? I mean, so I remember later on when in racing, when I started using Zwift a whole bunch more, the trainer started coming with me sometimes to the races, and actually thinking back, those are some of my best starts. Now I think of that, absolutely. And I think there's something to that, to using the trainer rather than just kind of going and finding some side roads that usually you're not going to do some consistent pedaling. You know, it's not a very large area, and it's going to be hard to really get those efforts in that are needed to get warming up. But there's definitely two different warm-ups that you had there. One that we're looking at for these specific workout efforts, but then there was also something that you were talking about there of being almost at what we're seeing in the workout here today. Maybe not quite as long, but this first little section is almost kind of part of a warm-up here too for those really high-intensity efforts.
Yeah, I mean, funny, you know, warm-up is something, again, that that people need to probably refine a little bit themselves. You know, they need to obviously look at how your body reacts to certain things, and, you know, how they feel as well at the start of races, and how they perceive that, you know, compared to another type of warm-up. And definitely experiment in training. You know, don't experiment your warm-ups in race time. But you're talking about mountain biking. I was at the Commonwealth Games this year in Australia, and I was part of the crew, the support crew that were in there. We were in the pens, you know, right at the start line. All our guys were sitting warming up. I had, you know, all the New Zealanders and the British guys and everything. You know, we were sitting with our turbo trainers and our team right beside them doing our warm-up procedures. And if you want to see these guys, you know, I looked at them, man, if you're riding that hard in your warm-up, I don't want to be behind you in the race because, you know, it was pretty impressive. And again, like you say, it was, you know, off the hook that first 500 meters to a kilometer, you know, it was for them guys probably 1400 watt plus stuff. It was just it was crazy. So I mean, they really warmed up specifically, including the ice vests and, you know, obviously the cooling systems and whatever, according to, you know, obviously a different environment that they were warming up in. So, you know, a lot of that is very strategic as well. So people turn it around. But one thing one funny thing that wasn't funny at the time, that I got really wrong, was that during the tour of Qatar. I don't know if you've ever watched the Tour of Qatar. It's basically you race through the desert, and you go out one road straight for 80-90 kilometers, then you turn right, and then there's another 80-90 kilometers, and that's it. So quite windy there, and there's no hedges because it's in a desert. And if you know the start is going straight and it's for 80 kilometers, and you know you've got you know, side winds coming for 80 kilometers, everybody wants to be at the front. Everybody wants to be at the front. So anyway, I had a late toilet break just before the start line. Obviously ended up right at the back on the grid, and basically we were getting dropped in the neutralize section. We were going so fast.
Oh my goodness!
There was guys going out the back, and in the neutralize section it was so fast, and I thought, yeah, this isn't gonna end well. And that is a time where I thought I really, really wanted to do a better warm up, because we were literally riding at 55 kilometers an hour in the warm up section. The car that's supposed to be, you know, pacing anybody
things is actually racing, causing everybody to go way too fast.
It just was non-existent, and I actually felt the first kilometer was easier than the warm up or the neutralize section. So that's a time really where I probably should have warmed up a bit better, but there we go.
So did you end up getting dropped? That's the question. What ended up happening?
Yes, well, I was in a. Yeah, we were pretty much nearly in the cars. I'm not joking you. This is in the neutralize section before the actual stage, the thing dropped. But subsequently, it kind of calmed down a wee bit, because once it, you know, at that time it was bunched up as well, so you physically couldn't move up. But once it started to string out a wee bit, and the pace went up, then you were able to move up and get into a good group. But yeah, no, it wasn't nice, that neutralized section. So claim to fame, I've been dropped in a neutralized section. So there we go.
Right on. All right. So speaking here, let's talk a little bit more about the tour on the stage today. So the warm ups. That was the topic we were just getting on. If you guys want to send more topics our way to chat about, questions, comments about coaching, Tour de France, anything like that, make sure to do so. Thanks a lot, Andy Harrison. I appreciate the question there. So we got some information about yesterday's stage, though. You know, yesterday, most iconic stage in the Tour de France for sure. Obviously, the Alpe d'Huez. This was the stage profile from yesterday, and we actually have some stats here from these climbs. We're looking at Pierre Roland. His data. How did we get a hold of this again? How do we have this data? But this is data directly from Pierre Roland. Yesterday's stage on the Alpe d'Huez. Well, the Alpe d'Huez is the final climb, but stage 12. Yeah. So what are we looking at here, and how does this relate to yesterday? I mean, we also have a couple other graphics. I mean, we got this one here too that we can go over, and then we also, we obviously have the climbs here, and then we also have this like play-by-play here graphics. Yeah. So let's go ahead and take a look though first at this one right here, this little bit more data, and then we'll take a look at the graphic that kind of shows it visually.
Okay, so pertinent context, Pierre Roland, obviously an ex-winner on the Alpe d'Huez 2011. Basically he's been at the Tour de France up until recently to work for Rigoberto Urán, who was second overall last year. So he's pulled out, unfortunately, with a crash. So that left him off the leash. So Pierre Roland was able to let fire these last couple of days, and he certainly did that yesterday. So he was one of the main aggressors right from the start. Anybody who watched yesterday's stage will know there was 4 climbs in total, 3 really long climbs. The Madeleine, the Croix de Fer, and Alpe d'Huez, the longest one, and then there was the La Sette de Montivier, which was a shorter climb. When I say shorter, Cat 2 at only 3.5 kilometers long, but still quite substantial. So what we've seen at the start was again very similar to Mikel Nieve the day before. All their peak powers basically between 1 minute and 60 minutes was set right on the first climb. So that very start of the race was whenever they were doing the majority of their peak powers. Now, that's probably not the same scenario for the likes of Geraint Thomas or the GC guys, but for the majority of ones, and certainly people like Pierre Roland, I would say Kruijswijk, who spent the day up the road, a lot of their peak powers were on that first climb. So you can see here in the Col Madeleine, very, very long climb, 1 hour 7 minutes at 5.4 watts per kilo, and it was actually in that part of the race that he done his peak 20-minute power. So I think he was about 380. He was like 5.8 watts per kilo for his peak 20-minute power, and he also done his peak 1 minute power during that time as well.
Oh wow!
So he actually went up to I think he done 700 and something watts for a minute, or 650, something like that. So he was really high for a minute, and that was whenever he was trying to reduce that large group. There was a large group trying to get away of about 30 riders in the break. He wanted to narrow it down, so he done a big jump on that, and then kept the pace going. So after that, he was probably riding at about 370, 380 after that big 1 minute attack.
So I want to give people a little bit of an idea of what so here's stage 12, Col de la Madeleine, 1 hour and 7 minutes, 21k an hour up, 362 watts, 5.4 watts per kilogram. His best 20 was at 380. His best 1 minute, all on this, and still, this is what was to come. So that was just the first climb, that first HC climb, 2,000 meters in total, up and over the top. And so from there, And Pierre, was he in the break then with Roland? I mean, I must have missed. So he was trying to instigate, is what was going on, and break things apart on that first climb.
Yeah, I mean, actually, the whole way from this first climb, the Col de Madeleine, to really the top of the Croix de Fer, you'll see the third climb, he was basically in the lead and was the main aggressor of it. Now, over the top and halfway up the Col de Croix de Fer, Kruijswijk attacked, so he was the first over the top. But on the Madeleine, he attacked to try and reduce the grip, so he was, probably the main guy trying to force the pace along with Alpha Philippe. And then actually on that climb of La Sette de Montivier, he attacked again at the bottom of that climb and rode the climb basically solo, and all in the name of just trying to reduce that grip.
He wanted to get a select 11 minutes. So we're looking at attacks into the La Sette. We see that. So we have 3 different graphics up front from Roland. in yesterday's stage.
Yeah.
The first one, fantastic attack. Then up and over the top, we are seeing a sprint at the KOM, 572 watts, 8.54 watts per kilogram. Then over the top, down to the bottom here, obviously they got a group that forms. And you're saying on this little guy here, this Lesat de Montvernier, 392 watts for 14:58
minutes
to try and
break.
Did it actually succeed? Yeah. That's the question. Did he get done from
that? Well, it was a great play by him because they hit the bottom of that with about 30 guys. He had tried to split it on the last climb. He did split it, but it came back together. Then on that there, he attacked again, went over the top of that climb solo, and then was caught by I think 5 or 6 or 7 guys. Or no, I think it was actually 11 in total. Core guys that were, probably what he wanted to have, that were sort of willing to work and not have any passengers. So they really hit the bottom of that quad affair as a select group and as a group that he was, probably comfortable with. Subsequently, he started that the bottom of the climb in around, quite steady in the sense it was 5.4 watts per kilo, 367. And it was, I think, in the bottom third of that climb, or just before halfway, that Kruijswijk took off. And, I think Pierre Roland, along with Nieve and 2 or 3 others, they pretty much rode that climb at a steady pace. You can see, he was quite consistent in his power between the first half and the second half. He went down to 5.3 watts per kilo. So it was pretty consistent, right? Subsequently, they did get caught on the run in to Alpe d'Huez, so they had that long descent you see coming off the Quad Affair. Team Sky started giving it a bit of gas. They got caught before the Alpe d'Huez, and then you can see that bottom kilometer on Alpe d'Huez. You can see there he was riding at 6.5 watts per kilo for that bottom 1 kilometer. So we done 6 minutes at he done 6 minutes.
Yeah, 6 minutes at 390, 5.82, but that was 15.2 kilometers per hour. But then, so there's two different
that's for 1.5
metrics we're looking here. Yeah, the 1.5 versus 1. So nice kick at the bottom. Looked like he was motivated to stay with it up front, but
and
there was motivation to just. I mean, the big hitters who'd been sitting in all day waiting for that. Amazing climb that we saw at the end. Obviously, things just started kicking off, and Sky just really set an insane tempo at the front end as they the workhorses started to take over the race. But the riders here, excuse me, let's get into the workout a little bit. We've got about, they're right into it here. We definitely want to get the live coaching section of it going. We're starting into the sprint on the day. We're talking about yesterday because Alpe d'Huez was amazing, but what's going on right now? They're right into the final kick here.
We're about a kilometer to go. Yeah, they're about a kilometer to go here. So you'll see this, and then we're going into 30 seconds where it ramps up again, 375. This is last 1 kilometer. Your cadence should be in around 115 RPM. So get that high cadence going, low torque, in the saddle at this point. If you're out of the saddle at this point, you're not going to have anything to give for that last 10 seconds. So make sure you're in the saddle, really concentrate on getting them legs like pistons, and focusing on dropping down and throwing that gear down to really get that force through for this next 10-second jump. We're about to hit this 10-second jump, and it's out of the saddle as hard as you can go, using your forearms.
Is that right?
This is you sprinting. This is you full tilt. This is your line. This is full line, gotcha. And then try and hold it. You're trying to just basically hold the effort now, coming down every last inch that you can get out. Like so, I see a few real high watts per kilo there.
Yeah, right.
Nathan,
up
you done
12.7. Right up into the orange numbers. That's what we like to call them. Whenever we start seeing the orange numbers, we know the kicks are coming, the attacks are happening. Yeah. But I'm starting to get a little bit. I need to get on the bike for one of these. Maybe not tomorrow, but maybe Tuesday we'll jump on for that. I've already called it out now. Oh, I got mountain bike practice. Actually, we're coaching NICA kids on Tuesday, so we'll see. Be a warm up for that or something, but so
Cool.
Today was a sprinter stage. Obviously, we saw some good predictions coming from the chat yesterday. Chris Bayless was able to pull it off. Spoiler alert, plug your ears. But Sagan did take down the stage today as they did catch him. A lot of the big sprinters gone. That's what's going to be my prediction. I was like, Sagan's just going to walk away with a lot of these stages now without the other big sprinters there. He challenges them many times, hits the podium a lot of times, but usually gets nipped by one or two of the full-on sprinters. Now I think, how are things going to go? Looking forward, we'll have to see. I'm kind of hands in the air about like who's going to be winning the stages besides him, but obviously I'm not as experienced though in who can sprint outside of those big hitters with those predictions that have been taken out of the tour.
Yeah, Christoph, Sagan,
excuse me,
Demar,
sorry, Christoph. Okay, that's a mistake on my part. Christoph, obviously,
and he, it was unfortunate for him to not win today. I feel just the fact that he's always a bridesmaid in the sense at the minute. God love him. He's just on that big win. He's just been off the boil, especially when he's always up against Sagan. So it's difficult for him to compete against that. But yeah, it was unfortunate. So I think him, Demar, they're definitely going to want a bit more. But to be honest with you, there's very, very few chances now between now and Paris for a sprinter. So
really? Okay.
I don't think there's going to.
Let's talk about tomorrow's stage then. I've got it here. I believe we are looking at. Well, I've got it here in a big graphic. We can go ahead and throw it up here, and I will find another better place to put that. But what are we looking at here for tomorrow's stage? This doesn't look easy. It doesn't look like we've got anything easy at all. The shorter climbs, they're not HCs, they're not Cat 1s, but they definitely come in very short succession to each other, which is going to cause a lot of attacks, I would think.
Yeah, it's going to be hard, and that last climb is really difficult. It's going into Mende. Anybody who's seen this climb before, they'll remember Steve Cummings winning a stage here a couple of years ago, and fighting it out, he dropped Bardet and Pinot. So that goes to show you the type of riders that were going. Yeah, so he passed them coming into the finish. So that's the type of finish this is. So it's a very, very difficult, very short steep.
3 kilometers.
Yeah, and we've got a great workout on it. So I've actually taken, I think it's Perez from Cofidis, who won a race, I think it was the Midi Libre, or a race down there in September time last year, and he was fortunate enough to put his Strava up with his power. So I've just basically mimicked his exact power for tomorrow's stage.
Okay, so you guys get to ride Perez's ride on this.
Yeah, so it was very difficult, and including the riding, and it's that big punch, but over the top, it actually finishes a bit of a descent over the top, so it goes down, then it goes a wee bit flat, and then it kicks up again. So it's an extremely hard finish. I think from my perspective, it's going to be very difficult to beat Alpha Philippe. It's him, Dan Martin. If the bunch keeps together, or they want to keep it together, then somebody like Dan Martin is going to be there. But I feel that it's going to be a breakaway. Obviously Dan cannot get in a breakaway because he's too dangerous on the general classification. So maybe somebody like Alpha Philippe. I don't have Dan Fleeman on chat here to try and give us.
Tamaro, who's he's going for? He's going for Tamaro on tomorrow. We're going here. Dan Martin from Andy Harrison. What is and then we've also
Roslik.
Yeah, Roslik. Excuse me.
Roslik,
mistake there.
Yeah.
And then
that's
Dan
good.
Martin coming from Andy Harrison, but he thinks Thomas is feeling punchy. We'll have to see if Garrett is going to try and take some time.
Yeah, that would be impressive. Personally, I hope it's a breakaway day, and I hope it's a real good fight between 5 or 6 guys. Like Thomas de Gent, that sort of rider. There's a lot of really good guys in there. So there's the young Colombian from EF Education, Martinez, I believe. I forget his name. He's quite a young rider, at Martinez, who's really good in this sort of climb as well. And he's kept a wee bit of a low profile. He was up there in the break a couple of days ago. He's not too happy in the GC. So somebody like him might be, if he takes out quite a steep climb as well, he might be able to use that sort of talent to get a gap on that. So, there could be them sorts of riders if they hit that last climb and they're able to use that Power S on a steep climb to really get the gap before it sort of crests over. It's they could go, but it's going to be a great race to watch. It's technically it'll be a really good race to watch. So
what's the length on this race here for tomorrow?
I'm not entirely sure.
It's still, 188 kilometers, so not insane. I mean, we're looking at under 100 miles on the day. Is that right? No, 160. Excuse me. So a little over 100 miles. 160. So still a long day in the saddle. Still. So
there's going to be a lot of people in the peloton not looking forward to tomorrow because on these sorts of days as well, there's rarely a gruppetto, or they can't go that easy that they can back off too much because they finish outside the time limit. So compared to, not that I'm saying a mountain stage is easy, but you can sort of time it a wee bit. Obviously, there's a lot of guys finish outside the time limit, but on these sorts of stages, the fact that it's so up and down and it's so rolly and it's so fast, you can't let go early. So you might be feeling like crap early on, certainly big, groups of riders or guys that, sprinters, whatever. I mean, that Cat 2 is 9 kilometers long. If you get dropped on that at 129 Ks, 130 Ks, and you still have 60 or 70 Ks to go over really hard terrain, I mean, I don't know what the time gaps are going to be at the end, but certainly you definitely do not want to be too far back at that stage, because if you're too far back, they're going full gas at the front. You're going to still have to ride very hard to get into the finish. So I think there's going to be a lot of people not looking forward to tomorrow in the peloton.
So tomorrow's stage, good workout, and that we're going to have here for you for stage 14 tomorrow. We just did stage 13, which was a nice little sprinter effort. It looks like it was a little easier on the riders. Definitely some kicks. You can see the ride report here. 98 TSS within 43 minutes. That's a solid effort, though, still. And that'll be it from us today, Stephen. Tomorrow I believe we're going to be having a guest. I wanted to make sure that we let everybody know, as long as technically we can get him set up for tomorrow. Graham Brown is going to be on here with us. A little bit about Graham, Stephen?
Yeah, Graham Brown, ex-Olympic gold medalist, was in the Pro Tour peloton for about 12 seasons, which is very uncommon nowadays, the amount of riders that aren't there for that long time. So riding for a Rabobank predominantly, has a wealth of experience, certainly understands the racing as good as anybody, particularly the type of stage that we have done today, but also has a really great insight into the riders that are riding Tour at the minute. Obviously has a lot of experience in riding these types of races, and winning these types of races. Has won many races all across the world, as well as Olympic medals on the track. And he's going to give us a great insight into how this sort of stage will be run tomorrow. And having spent lots of times in Italy racing, he'll understand how difficult this sort of terrain is as well. So, and it'll be great to get that insight and his predictions before the stage, because we'll be on air before the stage is on. So,
I think this is him on the track here, winning 2004 gold medal. Yeah. So, in Athens,
he was two-time. Yeah, he's two-time gold medalist. He also gold medal in the points race, I think, or the Madison. Sorry, he's gonna tell me off for not remembering tomorrow. But,
two-time Olympic gold medalist in 2004, two-time Commonwealth Games gold medalist as well, and two-time world champion. So tomorrow, Graham Brown, we'll be doing some testing with him later tonight to make sure that we can grab him into the broadcast. But excited to have him on, and we'll have some chatter about this super difficult stage and what the riders are going through, both in Zwift as well as out on the Tour de France. So, all right, everybody. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Stephen, as always, thank you so much for your insights and all your work. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yep, cheers. And so, guys, I'm Nathan Gare coming at you from ZCL, Zwift Community Live. That was stage 13 of Dig Deep Coaching's Grand Tour. You want to join the Grand Tour, head on over to digdeepcoaching.com, and you can find their sign-up for the Grand Tour. You can get a backlog of all the workouts and continue on with the workouts with us daily throughout the rest of the Tour de France. As always, great job to all the riders out there. Appreciate all you being out there. Thanks to chat for all your questions. And we'll see you tomorrow for an early start, 3 a.m. for me, 9 a.m. UK time for the Dig Deep Coaching Stage 14 prior to the get-go of Stage 14 of the TDF. Right on.